Hey crafters, welcome to my channel and welcome to 52 Weeks of Christmas. What we're trying to do is encourage people to be able to make things to give as gifts rather than spending a whole lot of money going out to the shops and buying things. We all love getting things that are handmade, made with care and attention, and show that you know the person that you're making it for really, really well. So for this portion of the 52 Weeks of Christmas, I'm going to show you how to make a vanilla extract in both human scale and in a doll scale. You could modify it into any scale that you like, but given that this is for our crazy group of crafters on Facebook, we're making it in 1/3 scale, which works for American Girl or anything like that. So I'll run through with you the bits and pieces that you're going to need for this craft, and I use a lot of the same tools all of the time. So for your vanilla bean extract, it's really great to set down in January, because as much as you can use this after about 6 weeks, I find that the longer that you leave it, the better it tastes, the fuller the flavour, but it's really up to you how long you want to let it sit for. This is my bottle of extract that's been going for about 5 years now. I'm finally starting to get it to the flavour that I really like, but that's taking it a little bit to the extreme, and I have very particular taste with my extracts. But isn't it just the most amazing colour? This is just over 1 litre, and there's about 35 beans in there, so it's what's called a double fold of extract. So for the vanilla bean extract, you're going to need a small jar of some description or a bottle. You need to make sure this is clean. Pop it into some boiling water or in the oven to sterilise the jar and the lid. You need some vodka. This is quite a small bottle of vodka. It needs to be at least 40% alcohol. So go with a brand that you know. It doesn't have to be expensive. Just something that's going to work. If you've got someone in your family who's needs to be gluten-free, then there are particular brands of vodka that are gluten-free, that are made with potato as opposed to wheat. So choose one of those. You can make a vanilla extract with bourbon, with rum. You know, it's fairly open. It just depends what your taste is. So some vodka. You're going to need a small bottle that you're going to be able to decant it into. I choose to use brown because the sun doesn't have the same ability to degrade the extract once it's done, but if you're wanting your recipient to be able to see the beans in it, go with something that's clear, or you could use blue. It doesn't really matter. Choose a size that you like. You're going to need vanilla beans. These come in all sorts of different ways. Over here at the moment, it's difficult to get bundles of vanilla beans. You may be able to get them on some of the trading sites on Facebook. Just hunt around, find the ones you like. There's a couple of different types of vanilla beans. They all have a slightly different flavour. Some have more floral notes. Some are a little bit sweeter. So you've got your bourbon beans, Tahitian. Just play around with it. There's no hard and fast rules. You're also going to need the labels that I've got. I'll make sure that that's attached somewhere for you guys to download. You need a chopping board, 2 different ones if you're doing these at the same time. One for food prep. I've got an identical one here that you're going to use for your polymer clay. Knife. I'm actually going to use gloves because some of the people that I give this to have a bit of a thing about germies. So you can either use your gloves. For the doll version, I need gloves because I actually want the texture that's on this latex glove on it. You also need some string. For the doll version, you need to have a small glass bottle. We need some cups for mixing your resin, either a 2-part or a single part epoxy resin. Remember that epoxy set off quite an amount of heat, so be prepared for that. something that you can colour your resin with. This is just my particular choice. Toothpicks for mixing. A jar to be able to put, because I will show you how to make it so that you've got a finished jar of extract and some that's set down and waiting. So you need a small jar. I found these in a $2 shop with sequins in them, so I also have a container to empty the sequins into. Right, so I'm just going to put on my gloves and we will get into the extract itself and get going. Also forgot to mention that you can use a knife, and I'll show you why, for your vanilla bean extract, and the tools that you'll need to make it in doll scale, but I'll show you those because they're really quite broad in what you can and can't use. So I'll just grab my gloves. Oh, don't you just love that noise? I'll include a list of the things that you need as well, and I'll also include the recipe for the real life one. So I bought a couple of boxes of vanilla beans from one of our local supermarkets. Probably the most expensive way that I could have bought them, but I didn't want to hang about for another 6 odd weeks for the season to change to be able to get them any other way. So I'm going to put in 6 beans into mine just because the flavour will come through faster. It's going to be a little bit deeper, and it's just because I can. So get your beans out. Now a lot of people say that to cut the ends off your beans, oh gosh, can you smell those guys? They are just absolutely amazing. The smell of fresh vanilla beans is just amazing. It's very heady and I really enjoy it. It's one of my favourite extracts to make. I do this every single year, although I tend to do it in a larger scale than this, but it works a whole lot better for a tutorial. So your beans are, I don't know if you're going to be able to see specifically, they are, there's an awful lot of, it doesn't really want to focus for me, there's an awful lot of texture in the beans. So just when you're making your real life extract, just pay attention to what your beans look like, so you're going to be able to replicate that in clay. But they're a decent size, length of your hand. They smell great. They kind of look like a little bit of licorice really, if you've never handled these before. So some people that I have seen online say to cut off the ends of the beans. I tend to not, just because to me that's a little bit wasteful. There's still flavour in that you can pull out. Some people also recommend splitting your bean, which is just using a sharp knife. Watch your fingers. We all make mistakes. No one needs to lose a fingertip, because then you can't craft. You can't craft as easily. When you open the bean, you'll find that there's lots and lots of tiny little seeds in there. And just an interesting fact for you, the plant that grows these beans also grows an orchid, which is pretty impressive. And they'll suggest scraping those seeds off and then putting that into the jar, which I actually do eventually do. It's just that I like to have it sitting for about 6 months before I do that. And then you can chop them up. Now because I've got a smaller jar, so I'm just going to chop these guys in half, because it'll work a little bit better for this size jar. So this will create a double fold with this volume of beans to the volume of vodka. There we go, all in there. And then just that smell is just amazing. And then take your vodka. There's no great science to any of this. You're just going to cover your beans entirely with vodka, or your bourbon, rum, whichever you decide. Haven't ever tried it with moonshine because I find moonshine to be quite a powerful flavour all on its own. Overpowers the vanilla a wee bit. Put your lid on tight. I don't have a vivid over here, something I forgot. Write the date that you set this down and store it somewhere in the dark, but give it a bit of a shake around every couple of days or when you think about it, and over time it will get this really lovely brown colour happening, and eventually you end up with this sort of thing. Although by Christmas you'll have quite a nice brown, not quite as dark as this one, but it'll still have the most incredibly rich brown, and it's just divine. Once you're ready with this, coming up to Christmas, you're going to decant that into a bottle. I'll just move that over there. So I've got these. I buy these in bulk, just because it's easier and it works out cheaper. I'm sure that Amazon probably has a ton of different options. If you're in the States, then the world is literally your oyster. You've got huge companies over there that you can buy this sort of stuff from. So what I do with my bottle to make it look nice and pretty is attach your label. There are loads and loads of labels online. I found mine online. I will try and design something that's specifically for the crafting group, but this works just fine. I've adhered it to the bottle with plain ordinary craft stick. It works fine, or you can print it onto sticker paper and stick that on. There's an instruction tag with it, which just basically says that, you know, shake the bottle when they think about it, because I tend to put 2 or 3 beans into the bottle when I'm topping up with the vanilla extract. It looks really nice. It means that as they use up the vanilla extract, they just need to add a bit more vodka, give it a shake every now and again, maybe add a new bean to it, and they've got perpetual extract, which is part of the great thing with this gift. So that's your real life one. I know that end bit was a little bit rushed, but it is what it is. So I've got another pair of gloves here. Because I actually want the texture from these gloves on my polymer clay. Okay, the type of polymer clay that you're going to use is really going to be dependent on where you are. Everyone has different brands that are available to them. I've used 2 different brands to get this depth of brown that I wanted. I've used a local brand made in New Zealand called Ducat, which is nice and soft. It also has some remarkably dark browns already, and I've added it to a tiny little bit of Sculpey, which I do find to be a little bit tacky, and a tiny little bit of chocolate brown Fimo. So I've got a really nice dark brown that's bordering on black. You only need a very small amount, and it's going to go into your glass jar to start with. So tiny little amount. It's literally a tiny little dot, and you're just going to roll it out. So if you'd had a really good look at your the beans that you had, you'll notice that they're actually not round like garden beans. They're actually quite flat. So once you've rolled it out, just push it down to make it flat, so it's completely flat. And you don't want these to be very big, remembering that they're actually going the length of your hand, so they're a remarkably small piece. I use an awl. You can use a toothpick, anything like that, and then just, I'll try and zoom in on this when I edit it. All you're doing is putting lines down your bean, because they're quite high in texture. These gloves that I use have a texture to them, which is really helpful. And then I just flip it over and do the other side. that, which I'm not going to be able to show you the detailing, but just have a crack at it. You really can't make mistakes with polymer clay. It's all a learning thing. If you don't like it the first time, have another go. Great excuse to craft more. I also use brushes of various types, either old paint brushes, new paint brushes, toothbrushes. You'd be surprised what you can get a really good texture from. And that's just to give it a little bit more life. Make sure you do both sides. And then this is actually a fraction thick, but I'll leave it anyway. They are a remarkably thin bean. And then you're just wanting to pull the tip because the part that it hangs from the plant from sort of dips over, and just blunt off the end a wee bit. So there you've got, I don't know how well you can see it, but that's a bean. Make as many as you like, as few as you like. Pop these in the oven, bake them to the instructions that come with your clay. I put about 2 dozen of these into the oven at 80 degrees Celsius. Sorry, I can't off the top of my head translate that into Fahrenheit for you, but I will in the when I edit it, for about 6 minutes. These are remarkably fragile when they come out of the oven, so just bear that in mind when you're bringing them out. Right, I've got some that I baked previously. I'll take my gloves off again. This is the most incredibly thrown together video, so I hope you guys are still with me here. So, two different ways that you can create this. If you're wanting to create for your doll's kitchen, a bottle of set down, ready to go vanilla extract, and a bottle that's ready to gift, have your 2 bottles. So empty your sequins out, keep those for a different project. Go, 2 different bottles, and this is what we're going to be creating it to actually look like. I don't know. So there's your beans that are in a small bottle, miniature version of the real one that you're going to be giving your doll to gift. And this is your beans that are set down, waiting to, I don't know if it's going to focus on those at all, set down waiting to extract. Just going to put a couple of beans into each one. Oh, if I can get them in there. 1, 2, 3, 3 in each. Like that. Mix your resin to the instructions. If you've got something that's 2-part, they usually equal 1 to 1. Use a little plastic cup. Keep in mind that most resins, when they are going off, produce heat. So use a relatively thick plastic cup, something that you can throw away. Otherwise, it's going to actually melt through your plastic cup and all over your bench, all over your table. Believe me, I've got enough resin stains on my table. Make your resin, colour it, because as you can see, extract has sort of a browny black colour, but I did it quite light because I wanted for you to still be able to see the beans inside it. So depending on the resin, I'm not going to suggest something to use specifically. I use an ink. There's all sorts of different things. They all react differently to the type of resins that you use, so you need to play around, figure out what colours your resin best. Pop it into your jar, pop the lid on it, or not, depending on what the instructions are, and set those to one side. Same thing, I stuck this on with an ordinary craft glue stick. You can use sticker paper, it doesn't really matter. and I wound string around the top. I'm not going to do this on video for you because I actually need another pair of hands, and my other pair of hands is down the other end of the house playing PlayStation with her older sister. So I just like the look of it. You run wild with it, create it however you like. So there you go. So you've got your vanilla extract that you can use as gifting for family, friends, teachers. I know a lot of you guys out there like to give things to your kids' teachers at the end of the year. I homeschool, so I give it to myself. But there you go. You've got something that you can give as a homemade gift that will be greatly appreciated. And you've also got something to include in your doll's kitchen that they can also be gifting to one of their friends or family or someone that matters in their life. Hope you enjoyed it. I'm immensely sorry for how long this video is. I promise they will get better as I go along. Have a fantastic week, crafters, and remember, always be nice. See you later.